Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Jewish Divorce Project. I'm your host, Noam Rauscher.
And I'm your host, Leeron Tal,
Join us as we kvetch
and Kvel about Judaism and divorce. From our perspective as two Jewish professionals and two divorce coaches.
and two Jewish parents with lots of experience and plenty of opinions. I wonder, wonder if you got me clearing my throat just at the end of the opening there. Way to go. Nice way to ruin the intro there, Rabbi. Way to go. How you doing, Leeron? How's your
I'm
weekend?
good. I'm good. I'm doing good. Had a good weekend.
Yeah?
Had the kids this weekend.
What happened this weekend?
It started with the annual holiday at the park
Mm-hmm.
that we went to in Burbank, which
What's
was
that?
super fun. They block off the entire street in Burbank and bring all these different vendors, and all the stores stay open late. And they have Santa, and the temple was there with the booth
The
too.
temple was there on Friday night?
Temple was there.
Oh, were they leading
Ooh,
services?
now I added them. No, they were just there. There were representatives from the board, and they were there, and they were giving out stuff, and it was good to have
That's really
representation.
nice.
They had their big Star of Davids everywhere,
Oh,
and
wow. That's actually a really good thing to be seen in public at
yeah,
this point, right?
yeah,
It's
it was
good.
the
Just
most
community
lovely event. It was
working,
just
yeah.
community. It wasn't about and it was just you see all the neighbors. It was really
I
fun.
think I had a friend who was talking about this. My friend Larry is a business owner in Burbank. He owns Blast from the Past, which is this wonderful like novelty and comic book
Yeah,
place for like all these wonderful pop and toy icons. It's fantastic. Maybe we should get him to try to sponsor if you're listening, Larry, and I certainly hope you are, but not that you'd have any reason to because you're not Jewish nor are you divorced, so I don't want to.
but wait,
But
wait, wait, wait. I know his wife. His wife is Kathy, right?
yes, yeah.
Yes, yes. I know
Oh,
Kathy when I was
wow.
working at the chamber.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think this might be, in the history of Jewish history, friends, the first recorded evidence of Jewish geography that involves and is requiring two non-Jews at the
Wow.
center of it.
We've made history for
There
sure.
you go. Let it be noted in the Jewish Guinness Book World Records.
Yes.
This is the first Jewish, non-Jewish game of Jewish geography ever played and won.
I love it.
All right,
I love it.
duly noted. That's a powerful weekend already.
Yeah, so we
Just
did
on a
that,
Friday
and then
night.
I actually had a really great earlier that morning. I did this coffee and coaching. I did an event for the solo moms, and it was amazing. And it
This
was a
is your
really
single moms group in
yeah,
Burbank.
yep, the Burbank solo mommies. But we're going to be opening up in other cities too.
Really? You're
Yeah, I'm
expanding.
expanding because it's really
Ooh.
people are really liking
No,
it.
tell us more.
So we did this coffee, and the topic was about the holidays and about being alone for the holidays, and if whether it was your first holiday season on your own, where your kids are with their father, or if it's the first time you're doing it without him. It was just such an interesting conversation. And the best part, where I felt like I did my mitzvah, there were a couple moms that were talking about how they didn't have they're going to be alone for Thanksgiving the first time and didn't really know what to do with themselves, and so they're going to get together and go on a hike.
That's really wonderful.
Yeah. But the biggest thing that came out of it was talking about new traditions. And that if you're the kind of person that loves traditions and you do the same thing every year and you feel like you should continue that when after a divorce, but it's actually then you kind of miss the other person. It sometimes can work
It's tough
against
adjusting
you.
to the holidays. You have a tendency of thinking like, oh, these are the holidays and it's the biggest time of year and I need to
And they're
put all my
used to
energy into
doing it.
making it special, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. And I'm used to making it special and then it feels different. This is all part of the grief process of it.
Yeah.
You
But
know,
I,
and
I think
we
in
just want
courting
to
the
let people
kids.
know we have a guest coming up too. Let's
Yes.
just tease you a little bit with that. Shani Sabban. Sorry, I need to be looking at my notes. Shani Sabban is a wonderful person and human being who's joining us as a guest to talk about her divorce and real estate. But back to this idea of you need to have. What were we talking about?
I was saying I think it's really cool opportunity to create new traditions
Yes,
and
holidays.
include your kids.
Yes.
So like one of the first years we did, we had our first, what was it? I think it was, I don't know, I don't even remember what holiday it was. But anyways, we talked about what do you like from the holiday? What can we do without? We kind of created our own traditions.
Yes.
So including the kids is cool.
See, so my ex got Thanksgiving in the settlement, and I have a lot of the Jewish holidays, obviously things like Hanukkah and Passover. We
But
have
she has
friends
every
who's
Thanksgiving?
splitting. She has every Thanksgiving, but we're very friendly about it. Like if it's my time, she won't necessarily require that she takes the boys, even though that she can, which is very generous of her. Um, but nonetheless, and I'm like that with the Jewish holidays, right? I won't require that I take the boys, and so she can have them for Rosh Hashanah if it falls over her time. Fine, that's holidays will come around again,
Yeah.
right? There are many holidays that will occur. And in some ways, it can be a relief to you not to have to take care of your kids on the holidays because that means you don't have to worry about feeding them and making sure the holiday's all set for them. I know, particularly as a rabbi as well, like I love sometimes not having to worry about my kids in the holidays
Yeah.
and like let their mom do it because that's the way the schedule it is. And I need to protect myself during that time. And it feels really good to release from that. But in terms of like what you said about new rituals and things like that and traditions, since my ex has Thanksgiving and, I- I've developed going to an early Thanksgiving dinner that's going to happen tomorrow night. This is now the second year we're doing it, of going to a place and having a Thanksgiving dinner, at all of us together from my men's group.
Oh, fun.
And so, since it's my men's group, I said, "Look, I would love to invite my boys to come along." And they said, "Yeah." So now my kids are going to come
Oh,
along.
that's
And my
awesome.
ex said it was okay too, even though it's not my day, right? Because she has them for Thanksgiving, which falls on my day, right? Technically, in terms of the custody schedule. So we went just kind of in an exchange like that. And it was really nice. And I'm looking forward to taking to them as part of this new tradition, right? So she can have them on Thanksgiving. That's great because I've got this whole other thing that I'm doing with them, which seems like a really wonderful way to do it too. So, to your point about new rituals and traditions are the way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're doing something new this year for Thanksgiving. We got invited by our neighbors to go camping.
Uh,
We're gonna use our trailer. They all bring like quads and dirt bikes and out in the
Ooh.
desert.
Oh my
And
gosh.
they had all the extra stuff for my boys, and they're like, just come. And we put all the RVs are in a big circle, and we put a
Uh-huh.
big picnic table down the middle
Uh,
and do Thanksgiving. Someone's making a turkey. So
oh
I'm
my
really excited.
God.
And my brother and his wife, they go to Hawaii, where her family's from. And then this year it ended up being just my parents and my grandparents who are kind of like, it's not a Jewish holiday. We're only doing it
It's a
for
very
you.
Jewish
They were
holiday.
like,
Toda o to my friend.
both of them know how much I love Thanksgiving and I always host it.
Uh,
And so they were kind of like, we go for you. So I said to my mom, would you care if this year I didn't host Thanksgiving? And she was like, yes, we want to go away.
there you
She
go. There's the relief
immediately.
from it. Again, your
So
parents even
now,
said it. I don't want to have to worry about my kids and my grandkids,
uh-huh. So I get to, and my grandma also was like, I don't
which
really.
is something, let me just say, is a fact that we should acknowledge hakarat hatov, right? Gratitude, the good that is in the world. I don't have
Yes.
to plan something for my children. There is goodness here.
And I'm going to be camping with all of these expert campers, and I basically get to just sit and chill while my kids are off being taken care of by the community.
No, here I am enjoying my like Nobel Prize in divorce relationships, figuring out an exchange with my ex that works for the holiday season. That's like a win-win for
It is,
everyone and
yeah.
is meaningful and doesn't leave anyone in tears but lifts everyone up and you get to go fucking jump over dunes and quads and shit and have a nice communal Thanksgiving meal. Well, okay, enjoy that. Fine.
Okay, it was a competition. I won this one.
No, but I kind of want to trade mine out now. It's like I
Oh,
love what I created, but like I'm jealous. I'm
you should
sorely
come
jealous. Maybe I will.
by yourself on
We'll
Thanksgiving.
see about that. We'll see about that. But to the topic at hand, right, that we're going to talk about in terms of with our guests is real estate. Let's also tease that up a little bit
Yeah.
too. Do you have like any reflections on real estate and divorce? Because I do.
Yeah, I got screwed.
You think you got screwed?
I know I got screwed.
Uh-huh.
It was a typical he bought the house before we got married, so it wasn't community property. And then I didn't put my name on the lease. I didn't put my name on it when we sold it.
Mm-hmm.
So when the divorce came around, it was not, I had no say. I mean, it was his house.
Right.
So that became an issue of, I wish I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of wish I didn't move out and that I bought the house rather than being bought out of the house. And that I used it as a way of like, well, just acquiring some wealth and selling it at a necessary point and maybe even paying off student loans.
I
I think I
wish
was
if,
too in the, kind of mindset of what happens in divorce, which is that the man typically moves out and leaves the house to the, ex so that she can be supported in that, right? So that
well,
she can be
yeah,
taken care of. I totally get that. That
I
makes
get
a
it.
lot of
It
sense.
makes so much sense. And I think a lot of the resentment my ex had was that it was his house and I was the one that was like, we should sell, we should
There you
sell. It's
go.
a new time.
There you go.
And had we not sold, he would have been living there. He would have had a house to move into
Right.
when we split up. So
Right. Well, I certainly hope that we can relive these moments, with compassion, self compassion to ourselves and not beating ourselves up over the mistakes that we've made, but also gaining new and wonderful insight moving forward with Shani Sabban.
yeah, and helping other people maybe not make the mistakes we did.
Exactly. So we're going to go to commercial, and when we come back, we're going to hear from our wonderful guest, Shani Sabban.
Matzo ball is the nation's #1 holiday party and has been for over 37 years. They throw holiday parties on Christmas Eve for Jewish singles in cities all over the country in New York, Los Angeles, Miami, Boca Raton, Boston, and Washington, D.C. For information on tickets, check them out at matzahball.org. And we're back. All right. Well, I'm really excited for our guest to meet Shani Sabban. Shani has been through a divorce herself. She is born in Israel, right?
Mhm.
Lives here and is a successful realtor. And she has been utilizing her experience in divorce to have that unique perspective and empathy towards those that are going through divorce, which I think is so important because there's all sorts of real estate agents out there that have different agendas and different incentives. And you really, really need someone who is compassionate.
Right.
Especially, I mean, I have women I coach and they need to talk to a realtor and they might break down and cry in the middle of the walkthrough.
I remember being in my lawyer's office when I was like talking about the divorce in the initial stages when I was still raw, and I was like crying there, and that just the feeling in and of itself, like of crying in that office, couldn't have felt more burdensome to me in the sense that like she didn't give a flying fuck about how I was feeling. And to her, like I'm sure she handles a lot of divorces on a regular basis. There might be a lot of guys that break down in her office, or women who break down in her office, and she's got no emotional, bandwidth for. So she, cavalierly hands you the box of tissues, and she hopes that you're okay. But like, it really helps to have
Well,
someone
she's
who's.
fine. They are
There
on
we
the
go.
clock.
That's a really good point. Thank you, thank you, Shani.
So
Yeah, I
Shani,
was paying for the tears.
tell us about your first of all, tell us a little about yourself and your journey kind of in your journey and experience in divorce.
Well, I 3.5 years post. I
Awesome.
have two daughters, 6 and 8, and yeah, I was with him. I was married for 14 years, so all of my 20s, half of my 30s, and then you go out into this weird world. COVID, right at the beginning of the divorce, and it was very, very overwhelming. So, at first, everything's a shit show and you're emotional and you're all over the place and you can't think rationally. So, went through that and then got myself together. I went, okay, I need to deal with this, like not by myself. And I went and I started working with a life coach whom I still go to, and I picked myself up and I went from point A with the relationship with him and with the kids and with the surrounding and with dealing with everything. It's a small Jewish community. We know that. So
Mhm.
people like to talk, and it's usually not for your benefit.
Yeah.
So we dealt with that. And then because of the fact that I've been through it, I wanted to help other people who are at that beginning shit show stage to not make irrational decisions or the wrong decisions because they're working through emotion. Just like you said about the attorney, there's no emotion because she
Right.
needs to get it done.
She does. Yeah. Yeah, she
But
does. And she was good.
yeah, but I understand the emotion, so I wouldn't hand you a tissue box and be cold, but
Thank you. That's nice.
I wouldn't. Well, I might judge you in here. No, I'm kidding. But so that's kind of been what I've been focusing on because I feel it's my way of helping beyond the help of getting the transaction done.
Really is a momentous occasion when you think about, you need a house might be one of the first things that a married couple does, right? They've saved and saved, and this is like the first major thing that they do as a couple that might bring a lot of stress, and so it means a lot, and it's a big investment that they've put a lot of work into it. Real put a personal touch on it, and then they need to sell it for this,
Yeah,
you know,
she gets people in the
divorce.
beginning and then
Yeah,
on the way out.
Well, a house is usually the biggest purchase you'll ever make,
right,
and home you live in is usually very emotional,
right,
has emotional attachment, and then come these ugly things like, well, I've been paying for it, you've been home,
right.
I've created this
Right.
home. What do you mean? And
Mhm.
then it gets
Oh,
that's where it gets
that's
ugly and
Right. What does it
emotional.
take on a real surface level? What does it take to make a home? It's not only the money you bring in to do it, but it is also the emotion that you put into it to sustain it.
100%.
I
well,
mean, it's
that was what was so frustrating in my situation was at
yeah,
the end of the day, it's like, yeah, you bought this house before we got married and put the down payment, but I made it into a home, and we even did remodels while I was there that my dad helped us with, and, like, there was a lot of things that I put into the house, so it felt like mine as well,
Yeah.
but it's just that, you know. I have a question for you. So, were you I love how you're telling us how you were down and you picked yourself up and you went to a life coach, which is so amazing because not everybody knows to really seek out help. Um, were you already working in real estate or was this a new career? Were you working while you were married or
So I have been licensed for 13 years and always did it part time. Uh, just my personal reasons at home and
Mhm.
financially, I couldn't allow myself to do it full time. And then I was home for 4 years with the kids, which was great, but very, very hard for me because it's not my personality. I enjoyed every minute, but I also felt the resentment of like not contributing how I'm used to contribute, which is, I guess, the working mom mentality, anyways. And then when things got really bad in the relationship, as soon as this little one is in daycare, gotta get her walking, gotta get her walking. I gotta go work. I need to go do something with myself. Maybe me being bitter at home is causing this strain. And then I started working again. So I've been full time for the last 4 years. So, and in a way, my mind was kind of like, I'm really unhappy. If I choose the route of divorce, which was my last option, I'm never about that either. Um, I need to have a way to support myself. So I got into it, and then COVID hit, and the divorce started. Shit hit the fan, and everything went to hell in the household. And I was like, all right, I am 100% focused right now. And it was probably my best year in real estate.
That's really wonderful. I'm so glad you brought
Beautiful.
up the resentment you talked about not contributing in the way that you really wanted to or felt like you should. So interesting how women often feel that sense of shame about it,
I think a
right?
lot
When
of
they
times,
really are already contributing so much,
Well, if you worked before you have children and then you stop and
right?
you kind of also it's also about it's also if you're a woman who likes to work and you've always worked and had a career,
Yeah.
it's hard to, you know, being a mom is so much work that you can't necessarily do it all in the
Right.
beginning at least, especially when they're little, but you miss it and it's hard and it's, you kind of know you could be doing so much more and you know how much you could be contributing if you just got out there but you're home with your kids.
I
It's
I have friends who the wife works, and I have friends who the wife is a stay-at-home mom, and I have
Hmm.
friends with who do both. I don't know how. God
Mhm.
bless them. But I think the resentment comes from the partner. Because if you're being appreciated for being home and the house is always clean and the kids, their homework's done and they're happy and they're going to their after school activities and there's always a home cooked meal, you're getting that appreciation and not the, you know, resentment from the partner, then you don't
Hmm.
create a resentment within yourself.
Totally.
I think most of the resentment that we carry comes from not having a supportive partner in what we
Hmm.
do.
Hmm.
What'd you do all day? Oh, that sentence
Or
keeps
coming
having
home and being like, "Why isn't the laundry done?"
Right. Where's my food? That sort of thing.
there's a lack of appreciation when people get too comfortable.
Hmm.
On one hand, you wanted your wife to stay home,
Hmm. Right.
and
Because it
and
took
now
care of
you're
any number of
complaining.
different things. Yeah.
So wait, I don't get it.
Yeah. And at the same time, I
So
think it goes
typical, I
both
think.
ways, right? I mean, it's part of the reason I think men enjoy having their wives at home, even if they don't necessarily want it, but maybe enjoy it, is because it does mean a lot of the child rearing falls on that individual. And that also becomes a very emotional job, right? Which is why women also bear the brunt of the emotional labor in the home, which is equally, if not more exhausting than the domestic labor in the home. But I think that's also because men know that like there's a lot of effort they also have to put into the office, which is emotionally draining as well. It's very hard to be a guy to go into the office and to have ideals about things and opinions about what's going on, things that the organization is doing, or even if you agree with what your office is doing in certain ways, right? And can you speak up about that? And if you can't, because you're in danger of losing your job and what that means in terms of how that'll impact your family, well, then there's some amount of emotional restraining, right? And stunting you have to do of yourself to say, like, I'm not going to care about that,
Mhm.
right? And so, in some ways, work has to be an emotionless thing for men in order to have it and maintain it so that they can be supportive of the family. And so, like, I think there's like I really do think there's like equal weight and attention that needs to be paid to the actual appreciation of both partners, particularly if they are in such traditional gender roles. Like if it is that like one partner is just staying home and taking care of the kids and one partner is just going to the office and working, then you really need to recognize what each person is bringing to the table in their own way. But like if one person's also working a full-time job and taking care of the kids and the other person's just working a full-time job, you have to balance that shit out.
Yeah.
Just
Well, I
necessary.
can think of a couple I know where it's like he's working so hard and he's working so many hours because he
Right.
really wants to provide for his family and they're just starting their family out. And she's like, "You're never around. I want to do family things with you and this and that." And that's the issue there. And he's like, "Well, she likes nice things and they like, they want to go on nice trips." And so he feels like it's
Can't tell you how many times I've
that's
heard
the
that exact scenario.
yeah, yeah,
Exactly that.
yeah.
Well, she likes Amazon's at my door every day and she wants to do this and she wants to do that. But I think people lack the communication.
Oh, absolutely.
That's where
That's
everything
Well,
it.
to
goes wrong.
really address and to say that this isn't feasible. You may like these new things and these nice shiny things, but we can't actually continue doing that.
Or even having a conversation instead of just saying, maybe in the beginning, the idea of, mom staying home made sense, but you have to check in. What if after 4 years, you have to check in? What could our life look like, and could we manage it if I worked as well?
Right.
And could you work less? And could you do drop offs in the morning? Like how I think that the goal, I don't know. I think it only works for certain people to have very clear one stays home and one works. But I think if
Yeah.
the goal could be that both people have their own personal career or anything really, even if it's volunteering, but if they have something on their own outside of the home, it's women are just better mothers in general if they have a life outside of the home. They don't resent. They
Well, I
say
think we all
it's
are.
resentful of your husband to be like, "Well, you're out all day with people,"
Right.
and they're like, "I wish I was home."
You're right. You're right.
The grass is
It's
greener.
like how men say,
Grass is greener.
I could never be a woman. And I, as a woman, it's very hard to be a woman, but I
Yeah.
don't know if I could be a man. Like there are so many
Right.
pressures on both sides that you have to step outside yourself and give the other person the credit for what they do. And I feel like that's just a mistake you make the first round.
Yeah.
Because you grew up with this cookie cutter idea of what marriage is supposed to look like and everything's 50-50 and you don't accept the fact that nothing's 50-50.
And,
No.
and to your point, I think there's also an assumption that you make as a kid, like you don't really know shit about your parents' relationship until you ask them or really witness it. Like I
Or
saw
when you
my
get a divorce.
like I saw my parents fight, right? I saw what arguing was and all that stuff, right? I saw how they resolved it and all that stuff. And there are different dynamics in other people's families. But underneath it all, I don't necessarily know the reasons why they were fighting. From all you determine for that is
No.
that fighting, is normal in relationships. It's how you do it that really matters, right? Contention is just going to be there. Confrontation is going to be there. But like, I don't know what they were arguing about. So a lot of it could have been about the imbalance of what was going on, right? That my father was able to go off working a full-time job, but still go off and pursue getting a law degree as a second career. My
Mhm.
mother was still raising us. And in many cases, working a very tough job and then had to take on a second job and still raising us a lot. I mean, I could see if there was a lot of resentment there, right? But my point is to say that, like, we don't know shit about our parents' relationship. So to assume that, like, everything is naturally 50-50 has got to be some type of, like, fantasy world
Where
type
did
of
we learn
thing.
it from?
I'm sure it's been implanted from pop culture or something, or someone saying something like, "Yeah, we always divide things up," or that's, it could just be our own brains as kids going like, "Yes, the right way to do it is 50-50, and mommy and daddy, they split everything down the middle because they love each other and that's how they do it."
It's from shows like Family Ties.
Whatever it is, it's whatever it is.
You
That was a
know?
great fucking show too.
Yeah, but remember that family dynamic? Like there's so many sitcoms back in the 80s
Yeah.
that had that very nuclear family. I mean,
But
other
I
than Full
wouldn't think-
House, which was very like progressive, right? But with the three dads or
Yeah.
the three men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even then, I wouldn't have assumed or been able to assume. I would have thought that Danny did all the work alone on Full House, right?
I don't know how he had time.
Because he had Jesse and Joey.
Oh, but he was on a
I
They were
make
a
TV
this
team.
show.
argument
They're
all
onto
the time
something.
to
They had
people.
teamwork, three people raising those kids,
That's what
three
I'm saying.
kids.
I make this argument all the time to people that, like, in some ways, Full House is a great example and I love it, but it's like misleading. Like, I
So
got divorced. I didn't have any fucking family around, right? They were all on the East Coast. I'm
I-
sorry, you wanted to
no,
say
no, I
something.
was
You're a
gonna
guest,
say
but,
I'm
like,
gonna go off your Full House thing.
please.
Full House reminds us that it does take a village.
Yes.
raising kids by yourself, which is what maybe that's the difference. Maybe that's why we've gotten to the point where you feel guilty saying I'm having a really hard time raising the kids.
Mhm.
Like I'm juggling everything. How did they do it? And then I think back, I mean, I moved here when I was 5, but I think back of how people raise their kids in Israel. You knock on the neighbor's door, "Can you watch the kids so I can go down to the market?"
Mhm.
And it's the community raises the kids
Yeah.
together, and that's
Nice.
why people were able to have 6, 7, 8 kids back in the days. But
You could
now we're
just
doing it by
rely on
ourselves.
being able to put them in the
You have help.
streets and allow people to pick them up.
Yeah, now you have to schlep them everywhere. You're doing it by yourself in LA traffic, in between this and this and this and
Yeah.
this. My kids are getting dressed in the car in the back seat to go to
Right.
dance class after school.
And it's
Yeah,
expensive,
and it's expensive, but
right?
it used to be the village raised the kids. And grandma and grandpa, they retire earlier now and they don't want to deal with you. So,
Making a
no, my
really good
parents are great. My parents saved my
My
life
parents
on
too,
a
but they're
daily.
also like,
Yeah, but I get it.
yeah,
They did
better
theirs.
than nothing.
Yeah.
yeah.
Better than
Oh,
nothing.
I am constantly so grateful for my family. To be doing this on your own completely without family around is
It's very tough.
yeah.
It's lonely and isolating at times. My family's been really, I think, as wonderfully supportive as possible, given just geographic distance and whatnot. And whenever we go to see them, it's a really wonderful experience, and they're very kind of understanding of the necessity of the time and the relief I need as well, and being able to go
Mhm.
and see friends in that way. But I think you're also making a good argument. First of all, I'm seeing you when we talk about this idea of village, right? And raising a child by a village standard or at least a village culture. The divorce community could really much use a divorce village, right? In which like you're supportive of each other in that way. And I think when you apply that lens of like the village atmosphere to caring for people going through divorce, whether they're your peers as adults or your peers' children, right? Your children's friends, children's peers, you, Shani, as a real estate agent, are very much like a transition specialist in that way because, as we talked about, the weight of leaving the own home and going to the new one, right, really has a big meaning to it. And so, like, I'm curious to you. I'm curious from you, like, what are the spiritual implications from your perspective about like entering a new home, right? Once you divorce, leaving the old home and entering a new one.
I believe buying the first home or going into a new home after divorce, it's only one step of the new beginning. Because you have to, like you guys were talking about before, new traditions, new way of life. It's that transition into a whole new way of life. So I like to also advise people. You were saying how you use the money and when and paid off loan. And in my perspective, I'd be like, why don't you invest that? Because you're getting a big chunk of money right now that if you're gonna go spread it out, you won't have it for the long run. Put a down payment on something smaller. You're just you right now every other weekend or whatever it is, but buy something because in the long run, you'll be able to pull that equity and do what you need to do later. So I like to advise on what you can do with your money. Obviously, if I don't know the answers, I bring somebody who does and can help them invest it correctly. And just the whole trying to keep it positive because it's just very emotional and then the anger comes in and I'm just like, "Okay, guys, let's remember that it wasn't always bad.
Mhm.
Right.
It wasn't always bad. You have these beautiful kids. You've been through everything. So something happened that led to this or over the year. But let's keep the love. When you bought the home, there was love in it.
Yeah.
So let's end it in the most beautiful way we can. And, it's a lot of back and forth. And I'm constantly stuck in the middle, but I'm okay with that. It's okay. I think transitioning needs to be
Yeah.
a little bit.
I'm actually finding a lot of women who are struggling with if they decided to stay in the house, if they were able to stay in the house, even if it's a rental, not necessarily, and then it's like hard. You have to do a lot to make it your own and to not feel like it's still, you have all the memories from the fighting or whatever. And like that's an interesting. I kind of think it's if possible, unless it's like a paid off house and you're like, I'm not moving for some reason or it's going to my kids or whatever. But I actually think I really appreciated starting over in a new house. I thought it was better originally for me to stay in the house I was at that I was renting. And then I had no choice. A couple of months after he moved out, the owner died, and the management company's like, "We're selling the house. Go
Oh,
find a new place." And I was like, "Oh, I thought this one was best for the kids." But moving out and starting over in a house that was just ours, that
Yeah.
we it was really that was really spiritual.
Can I say, for all the complaining I do about the patriarchal nature of dating and everything, like I did with our first guest, Erica, for this season, I wound out when you came over for that creative powwow as well, right? You said, "Thank God you're in a house and not in an apartment," right? And I felt that deeply
I didn't say
because
thank God.
I know you didn't say thank
I
God,
said
but you said it's great or
it's
something.
great that
You
you're
said it's
yeah.
great. I apologize. You said it's great.
I didn't know what I was
No, no,
walking into.
but
Yeah.
but let me also
Yeah.
just say that I appreciated that, right? Because that was kind of the feeling that I was going for is that like not that an apartment wouldn't be bad, and let me be absolutely clear that like you make whatever decisions you need to make, right? Financially speaking, when you leave divorce. If you don't have the funds to rent a certain place, you need to find a place that's far more affordable
Yeah.
because this is a long-term game that we're talking about and not the short term, right? So let me just say that. But for me, right, it felt like I really wanted to be in a house that had a yard because I had a dog at the time who could walk. And I had kids also. I wanted them to be able to go outside freely and not necessarily have to worry about things. So I wanted to be in a neighborhood. And I found one that was affordable that I could do that. And that felt like a very good decision. It
Uh,
really did.
100%. I have to say, I just saw his house for the first time and I was really
Right.
impressed because, listen, let's be real. I've seen a lot of single dads'
But that's
houses
what I'm
with all the
saying.
dating I've been doing, and they're usually like glorified bachelor pads, right? There was one guy that I was dating, and I remember walking in and he was in a house, and I saw the lunch boxes lined up and the school calendar up on the wall, and I was like, oh my God, I love him. He was like,
He knows what it is to pack a
I was like,
lunch.
he's a man. He's a dad. He's not living in this little shitty studio apartment with like a inflatable bed for the kids.
Knocking stuff over.
My hands are too much.
It's tickling.
Anyways, yeah, it was a compliment, and
Thank you. I appreciate
I
that.
think the fact
No,
that
and
you
I took
put
it
I
as much.
wish
That's what I'm saying.
more men should do that.
Right.
Really, you picked a place with the kids into
Right.
consideration. It wasn't like where do I want to live, and oh, the kids are going to stay with me.
Right. And there's certainly part of the mentality of like, well, they're just going to be here every other week or
It's
a
a
couple of
waste of
days
a
a week.
room.
It's a waste of a room. It's extra money. And like, I get that financially speaking, but in the long run, it's a bigger investment, is what we're talking about.
Hmm.
Right. And that really means so much when you go into it, like the new space that you are creating. Right. Again, a la the divorce kind of transition person as a real estate agent. Right. That's a real significant thing to do.
Yeah. What would you give? I'm really curious because you actually enlightened me. I think I don't know if we were on earlier, but we were talking about community property. And you said something that honestly, almost 6 years out of divorce, this is the first time I've heard it. That after 10 years, the house becomes community property. And all I've been hearing was, you know, you want to get divorced, but before 10 years, whoever's making more money probably wants to end the divorce before 10 years. So they're
Right.
not, they don't have to pay spousal support forever. So tell us a little bit about how that works and any kind of tips you have because if you're in a situation where you think marriage might be on the rocks, what are some things you should know?
That's an excellent point.
So, first of all, from what I understood after what I went through, I was married 14 years. So, automatically after 10 years, California law, right? Spousal support is eternal
Hmm.
until the partner gets married again.
Or dies.
Child support is child support. And anything you acquired throughout that marriage becomes community property. So, it should be 50-50.
Hmm.
Now, yeah, some people, anything you want to do when it comes to real estate, to check out what rights you have and what you don't. Automatically, if you would have called me, I would have gotten my title person on the phone, and she would have looked it up, and she would have looked at all the documents, and she would have been able to tell you what you are supposed to get out of it and what not.
Hmm.
So we kind of all work together on it because there could be some document in there which says, "Sorry, girlfriend, 25 years and you still don't get anything." But there's always a loophole that we can try and figure out because you want to be fair at the end of the day. But yeah, the 10-year rule is if it's over 10 years, it's eternal. That's what I call it. It's eternal. So some
Yeah.
people do try to wrap it up before. Whether that's fair or not,
Yeah, and it
I
would
don't
make
know.
sense if there was like a drastic income
Right.
difference, but like ours was not even that much.
Eternal's a good word for this podcast and talking about this, right? In a spiritual way
Well, you
too.
wanted a
Like
spiritual word.
it's
Yeah.
going on forever. That's what we're talking about. It's
Forever, forever.
eternal. There's something Leeron brought to my attention too, which is this very cool new thing offered in California. I don't know if you've heard about this, but it's the California Dream for All Shared Appreciation Loan.
Okay.
You know about this?
I know about it, and if you want me to burst everyone's bubble.
I
I
would
would.
love, please, no,
Oh,
bring me back to reality because this is very
I've been
intriguing. Let
very
me just let
excited
people
about it.
know what we're talking about. For any, we have a lot of listeners in California. By the way, we just as a side note, we need to honor all of our listeners because we're growing internationally. We got listeners in Ireland, which I think
Oh,
is pretty cool, right? And listeners in Australia, which I think is pretty cool,
that's
right?
cool.
And all over the world. And I would love it if they reached out to us too because we would love to have some international episodes here. I think that would be awesome. But anyway, the California Dream for All Shared Appreciation Loan is the Dream for All Shared Appreciation Loan is a down payment assistance program for first-time homebuyers to be used in conjunction with the Dream for All conventional first mortgage for down payment and or closing costs. Upon sale or transfer of the home buyer repays the original down payment loan plus a share of the appreciation in the value of the home.
Right. So
Burst my bubble.
let's burst your bubble.
Sounds
Because
amazing.
essentially what
I'll
you're telling me is that
explain
they're
it a
going to
little
pay
bit,
20%.
You're going to put your 20% down
Right,
and you don't owe it until you sell the house.
right.
and then
I
they're
mean,
going
it
to
sounds
tap
amazing.
into the equity on the house, though.
Sorry.
So California, more or less, let's talk about the LA market because we're our own bubble.
Do that.
100% own bubble. Statistics you see have nothing to do with LA.
Right.
LA, Miami, New York, the big cities, they have their own bubbles. So here, a property, whether things are up or down, they appreciate between 3 and 5% a year. Let's say we had a dip, it went down 4%, the next year 3 or 5% up, a little dip. So we're always even out somehow, and there's always equity on the house. So this loan would take it away from the sale, plus tap into the equity that you acquired on the house. So if you bought it for 500 and now it's worth 650, you pay back your loan, and they take a chunk from that 150 you made on it.
That's part of the deal on
That's
it.
part of the deal, which is not bad because otherwise you wouldn't be able to have a house at all, right?
It's the down payment that's really helpful.
But as far as I know, the reason why you pay back the down payment is to help for the next borrower, right? That's what it is. You're putting back into the bank. So is what you're telling me is that they're essentially charging interest on the 20% that they loan you for the down payment?
Nothing's, no free lunch.
No, I think that's fair.
Which is still fair though.
Right.
The only problem that exists that they don't talk about is there's only a certain amount of money allotted to the program, and it's usually gone within a week.
Oh, the entire program is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, it's probably
So this isn't like
already.
blanket, like they open the coffers, right? So you need to really apply and get in there and see that there's money
You
available.
It
need to be
already-
ready before and work with a lender and a realtor that will update you. Okay, it's starting in a week. Are all your documents in? Are you ready to
Wow.
go?
Okay.
And then just
I
take
think it
advantage
launched
of
in
it.
November. I think it already.
It's,
Well, it just says program update was October 26, 2023.
that
It
was
says the Cal HFA Board of Directors approved the second round of the Dream for All Shared Appreciation Loan Program. The October board meeting, we anticipate a release
Oh.
date of the program in early spring of 2024. The official program
Oh.
details are announced coming January.
So
So
they're
this
doing
is
it
what
again
you're
in the
saying.
spring.
You need to prepare for that, is what you're
prepare,
saying.
start looking at properties before the program comes out. Have all your documents in with the lender doing it.
Right.
And be ready with the property ready to go. So how many people have a house that they want to write an offer on exactly at that time?
Exactly.
The
And you're
last,
like, I don't have the 20% yet, but I will.
yeah.
Exactly.
The
Hard.
last round of it, I think they tapped out within 10 days, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Oh my God.
I've got my
How long have they
lenders.
been doing this?
I've been doing this for 12
No,
years.
how long have they been doing this?
I think this is the second time.
My dad had said he remembered something like this way back in like the 80s or something where they did a program where they put money down for people's homes.
When you think about that, that's such a big chunk of money to give to one person, especially when you think about like I just for shits and giggles, I checked out what it was like on Zillow and whatnot and what that would actually look like. If I wanted like a $1.5 million house, which is 3 bedrooms, 2
That's the
baths
average house. Yeah.
in Pasadena, right? Admittedly, it's been redecorated, so it's like up to date. If they're charging 1.5, that's what I've noticed, right? But like that's easy. That's what 200,000, 250,000, something like that for 20%.
20% down, you're at 300.
Yeah,
Closing
$300,000. That's a lot. That's a lot of money to give to one person, and
But
so
your mortgage payments are still going to be like crazy expensive every month. Like,
for a 1.5, yeah.
yeah, even with that 20%, I've gotten so
I don't know.
frustrated.
I'm terrible with the math.
My
but I
dad's a
think I've been doing it
contractor,
right.
and if I buy, it has to be a fixer. And I live in Burbank, and if I were to stay in Burbank, the fixers are like 900,000. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
I know they
But,
are.
Maybe eight,
I
maybe
will
eight.
tell you, this is the best time to buy if you're going to buy because prices are set, normally. Let's call them a normal price value for LA, and you don't have a lot of competition.
Right.
So if you can wing it for the next 6 to 12 months of making the payments, the interest rates are going down. The feds have already talked about that.
Mm.
And then you refi, and all the lenders are offering a free refi when the time comes. So, but when the rates go down, I mean, during COVID, besides the fact that you had to wear masks and booties and all that fun stuff, there were lines around the block to see properties. 20, 24 offers
Mhm.
per property because the
Mhm.
interest rates were so low
Right.
and everybody came out of the woodworks.
Right.
And now that it went up, people are still adjusting to the new normal. So eventually people will have to understand 6, 7, 8% is the new normal.
Mhm.
It used to be 12%, and there were times where it was 18%.
You're saying it's advantageous now because it's going to spike again.
Because people's, 3 years ago, it was in the mid threes.
Sure.
Did you see a difference in anything because of the strike? Or a lot of people, did that affect
The
the housing market
WGA
in any
strike
way?
and the
Yeah.
writers and the SAG
N-
strike.
No.
I haven't seen it in anything I read, but it affected,
It's affected divorces, I'll tell you that. I don't know if it's because
Did it
I'm in
really?
Burbank where all the industry people are and the actors, but I've had quite a few clients that are like they were on the way to getting a divorce, but now he's not working because he's home and they can't afford, it kind of put a halt on the divorce. And it's like we survived COVID together and now this strike is ruining it for
that's
us.
funny.
Huge. But it's more. It's
And the
also
trickle
more.
down, I mean, I've seen it
Well,
really
but
affect a lot of my
let's
clients.
be serious, right? The home situation and leaving the home is enormous when it comes to divorce, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about property and assets and like how did you set it all up and eternal, relationship and
The
all that
biggest.
stuff and spiritual, right? It's about where the fuck are you going to live?
Hmm.
100%.
Right, and landing on your feet ultimately, and that is like survival 101. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Basic survival, right, is where the fuck are you going to live once you divorce and separate?
Yeah. And then you're also like, what's best for my kids? And if they go to a certain school and you
Right.
can't just pick up and leave and go to live in a new town that's cheaper, you're bound to the life many times in the city. I mean, I don't know. I've never heard. Have you had clients where they're like they both decided to move together to save money?
I didn't have clients, I had friends.
Yeah.
I had one friend who they were living on the West Coast and they got divorced, and the husband said, "I'm just gonna move into the East Coast, and we should all do that." And at the time, she didn't have really any major commitments or things going on. She wanted transition in her life, and she said, "Okay."
Were they originally from the East Coast, both of them?
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's like going back home to be closer
and
to
so right,
parents
it
and
was
family.
familiar,
Yeah.
but
That.
but they had also built a life for themselves out
Yeah.
west, right? And so,
How nice that they both. I mean, if one disagreed, then that's not going to happen.
well, I have to also give it to them in some ways. Like I think it's spiritually cathartic too to like leave that all behind, right? Like, yeah, you're divorced, but like you're not still living in the same state,
Yeah.
right? Forget about the same house, right? It really does allow you to kind of start anew.
I don't mind that, because it's like you have to go to the same school and you're seeing the same kids and the same families. It's a lot, They
They're
they they know what's going on. Oh, mom's sitting on that side of the field, dad's sitting over there. Like the people in your life and your community
it
that
doesn't
know you when you
change
were
that.
married and stay.
No, it doesn't change that, but like it
Well,
offers does offer something new, which I think is nice, and can also like because they were from the East Coast, put them both back in familiar territory where they
yeah.
could feel
But
supported.
I like that the whole family gets to kind of start over and have
Yes,
new experience and a
yes,
new community and all
yes.
of that. It's not a bad.
And for some, still having the same community and the same places to go to is reassuring,
Yeah.
right? There are pros and cons to
Hmm.
whether or not you stay in the same town or city that you grew up in or were
Although,
married
let's
in.
be real. When you get divorced,
Do it,
I'll speak as a woman.
please.
I'll speak for myself. When you get divorced, you lose a lot of your old life.
Your
Yeah.
old friends.
Yeah, I mean, you're no longer in a couple. You're no longer part of that group of friends anymore who goes on vacation together and suddenly, here and there I'll get an invitation, hey, we're going for the whole weekend to Palm Springs, bring the kids, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be the only single one there, which I don't care. But you're kind of excluded from a lot of things. So it's starting all over without the support, moving to another state. If I didn't need my parents, I may, gotten my real estate license in Florida. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, it's tough. So having a community that supports each other, which is what's been happening lately. A lot of people transitioning into the divorced lifestyle kind of gotten together in a little support group. We call it our little divorce support group.
It's wonderful.
People who are people who are going through it, people who are post. So it's kind of like, I know what you're going through right now. I know you just want to stick a knife in his eye, but I promise you it's gonna pass. Look where I am. Look, remember how I was
Right.
in the beginning? I was a hot mess. So that's the community. The old life, I don't know. It's sad. I miss them, but my door's open. So
I realized too a big
yeah,
part was I didn't obviously you stopped getting invited to some couple stuff and there were certain friends that I was like really bummed because I found that I'd only hang out when it was like girls' night and I was like, I like your husband. He's my friend too. Like I want to hang out with him. I was friends with all the husbands. But it was like instead of getting a sitter, I would go with just her. I do have one couple that I'm equally friends with both of them. And sometimes it's just like, who wants to go out? And one stays home. And sometimes I'll go out with him. Sometimes I'll go out with her.
that's awesome.
Like, he
That's
wants
not
to
very
meet me for a
common,
drink,
but
but
that's
it's
very
not
awesome.
common. Yeah.
Yeah.
But is that
No,
funny to
no,
you?
that's wonderful. It's been Shani, it's lovely that you're bringing your own personal perspective and experience in divorce into your professional, right? Which a lot of people wouldn't assume to be that central to divorce, but is, right? And like taking that care with your clients is, I would imagine, a really valuable touch to them.
I hope so. That's the purpose. um, I think I unfortunately throughout my life have to learn the hard way versus learning from other people's mistakes. And my parents always told me, "Don't learn from your own mistakes, learn through other people's mistakes." But I'm a Taurus. We like to be hands-on. Um, but there are people that if you already went through it and you really want to spare, forget them, the kids. As a mom, it hurts. You see the kids going through it, and then when it's ugly, the kids get involved somehow always. And I just try to avoid that by, in the end, a realtor is a therapist. We become therapists. We have to hear everything that's been going on and how they feel. And this happened. It has nothing to do with the house. It has nothing to do with the search. It's everything else. And I think that's why I like it because I am a people person. And so part of that transition of selling a house is not to make the mistakes that are going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars or problems later or get stuck with a house that you can no longer pay for because all these other things came up and the attorney fees and the spousal support and I could go on and on. But
So let me ask you this then. Since you have this wonderful perspective of having gone through it personally and being able to stand at a much better perspective than others and kind of look out and see what other people are going through and work with them through it, what's the best piece of wisdom you think you can give someone, given everything you just said, the pitfalls that you could encounter along the way, the myriad of them, right? Let's say you're standing there with someone and they're about to, embark on this divorce journey, right? As the real estate agent, you know the pitfalls ahead. What are you telling them?
you know what I tell my friends also that are going through it? I'm like, I'm just a mirror of the future.
Sure.
This is where you could be if you go down. You're going to go through I went through the crap too. You're going to go through all the emotional stuff, but why don't you look a little bit into the future? Let me guide you and kind of to lessen the mistakes you'll make. You're gonna make mistakes. You need to make the mistakes, but let's help lessen it. So wherever you can't be rational because you're emotional, let me do that. Let me take that on. Let me help you. Right now you're overly emotional. Let me be rational and come to you rationally and bring both parties, of course, to the table and never favor one over the other. I don't care if I'm a woman and I don't
Mhm.
care what happened. It's irrelevant. Very rational. Things happen. I always remind people, guys, there's a reason you got married. There's a reason you bought the house together. There's a reason you had the kids. Let's not forget that. Let's end it nicely and let's make you both walk away happy at the end of the day. So it's kind of like let me guide you where you can because sometimes we can. How many times I'm just like even with friends or even on a date, where do you want to go? You know what? I don't care. I make decisions from the minute my eyes open. Just make a decision for me. I don't want that responsibility. So it kind of goes with that. You're overly emotional right now, needing to deal with
Mhm.
your new life change. Let me be the rational one. That's my job.
Mhm.
So
Well, we talked about this in our last episode with Nath, how much you learn from divorce and how it bleeds into your life from the healing process and just everything you've learned and how it just can make yourself better in your career and in the choices you make. And so it sounds like you've really
it's funny. I
tapped into that.
forgot for a while. So we were in the car with a girlfriend of mine who, because when I whatever happened, and it was like the breaking point of that's it, it's done. And then COVID hit, and I was stay at home for 4 months. He stayed at home. He stayed on the couch. Nobody knew. Nobody knew. I didn't tell a single soul that I'm getting divorced, that it's over, and so on and so forth. And only he went to Israel to go be with his parents for a little bit and figure it out. And only then I started telling people. So I forgot all the rage and everything. And we were in the car with another friend who's going through it. And she's like, "Well, Shani was like that too in the beginning." And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, she was so angry. Remember, you were like this and you were like that and you said this." And I went, "Oh, I did." I'm so zen now. I forgot.
It's
You
hard to
know,
sometimes look back and remember that person
it's
that
kind
you
of
were.
scary, but
It's also easier to forget when you let go of things,
Mhm.
yeah.
right? 'Cause then you're
I
not
didn't have anyone that had gone through the divorce to
right.
kind of guide me. I was the first. I had a girlfriend that said, "You're just the first. You were too
Pave the
early. You should
way.
have waited a few years." So
Shani, this has been a wonderful conversation.
thank you for me too.
You're
We need her to tell us how people can get in
I'm
touch with
going to.
her.
Can I thank her
Yeah.
first just
Yes,
for
yes,
everything that she's
please.
done, and then give her the
Want to
chance
make
to
sure
plug
she doesn't
herself?
forget.
I'm gonna do it. Ugh, I just started podcasting yesterday, Craig. Did you know that?
I'm sorry.
Anyway, Shani, seriously, this has been wonderful. You, from your expertise in real estate and the perspectives on, what I thought was a really wonderful opportunity. Um, may turn out to be very limited. Uh, and you're also perspective and personal wisdom in divorce. Thank you very much for sharing that so generously, so articulately. You're a fantastic guest. We would love for people to be able to get in touch with you. How can they get in touch with you on social media?
First of all, if you Google me, I'm there. No, I'm on Instagram. I just recently went back to my maiden name, Sabban. It was Gil before. So I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. The
Great.
kids are making me get a TikTok. I don't know if I'm ready for that,
You
but
like walk people through
yeah,
the homes that you sell and everything.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know how to use TikTok, but yeah, I'm on social media. Google me. My phone number is on there.
Very cool.
Unfortunately, it's a little
Do
creepy,
you have a
but yeah.
website?
I have the company website
Yeah.
at Equity Union, so it's they need to change it, but it's Shani Gill at Equity Union.
Okay.
That's where it is. But we're working on rebranding everything.
Great.
So
Excellent.
yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shani. Thank you. I'm so glad Leeron could set this up. This is
Yeah,
wonderful.
thank
to
you.
have
Thank
you
you
as a
for
guest.
having me.
Maybe if we have more real estate questions later on in the future, we'll
I'll
call
be
you
back.
in. Yeah.
Gladly.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
you know what? If anybody wants to email us or write us
Yeah.
on social media, any kind of real estate questions for Shani, I'm sure that she'd be happy to jump in and answer
Oh,
them.
I'd love it. But
We'll
next
put a
time I'm
post
bringing
out.
wine.
Yes. Or
Yeah.
change the not change, but or what was moving like for you, right? If you have a story about what
Mhm.
it was like to sell your home or to move out of your home or transition to a new one and divorce, whatever happened to it,
Mhm.
right? If that you think could be as use to other people to hear, right, of benefit to them, please feel free to share that as well.
I mean, it's a new journey I'm going on with the whole divorce section of it. So hopefully, maybe next time I could come with stories
Absolutely.
and that I
Absolutely.
collect.
I think that would be a great
We'll do a
idea,
part
actually.
2. I
Yeah.
Yeah,
think
to
I like
talk
the idea
about
of a part
divorce.
2.
I think that would be really lovely to talk about like real divorce communities that people are forming together.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Um,
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shani.
Thank you guys.
If you're interested in becoming one of our sponsors or have questions and thoughts about the podcast, please email us at thejewishdivorceproject@gmail.com.
And you can always find us on social media at the Jewish Divorce Project on Facebook and Instagram.
And if you'd like to work with me, I specialize in divorce coaching for women. I can be found at mydivorceconcierge.com and on Facebook and Instagram at mydivorceconcierge.
And if you're interested in working with me for divorce coaching or spiritual coaching, I work with people of all kinds, of all backgrounds as well. My email address is noamrauscher@gmail.com. That's NOAMRAUCHER@gmail.com. And you can also find me on Facebook and on Instagram at Noam Rauscher.